I do want to talk about another team up here in the Bay Area. That is the Golden State Warriors, who right now are 2-1 in this Jimmy Butler era. Wins over Chicago and Milwaukee. Got beat by Dallas on Wednesday. We're recording this before the game in Houston on Thursday, a game that Steve Kerr was not at all happy that the Warriors were playing, and with the NBA decision makers on that one. Small sample size, Ben, but Golden State in the last 3 games is 7th in offensive rating and 9th in defensive rating. So pretty good. They are 19th in 3-point percentage, so any fears you might have had about their 3-point production have been realized in the short term. But 2-1, Jimmy Butler having off to a good start. Your thoughts on the new look Warriors?
Well, I liked the trade terms in terms of what they gave up to get Jimmy Butler. What I didn't like was the contract they gave Jimmy Butler. It just felt a little bit too rich for my blood, $60+ million for the next couple of years for a player at that stage of his career. It feels like a big risk. It feels like a big gamble. If you're going to put together kind of a big three with Steph, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green, you would prefer to have those big three salaries be for guys who aren't, aging so deep into their careers as these guys are. So while there's no question Jimmy Butler makes them better, I mean it's an improvement short term on the court, and we've seen that in these first couple of games. I don't think it drastically changes the direction of their season. I don't think it totally, lifts their ceiling. And then really what I get concerned about is what do these next couple of years look like? I mean, if this is a one and done team in the playoffs, for example, they come back next year, injuries could strike. I mean, that's not a guaranteed playoff team to me next season. And then beyond, it could get even worse. So I'm not super doom and gloom like they're wasting Steph Curry's last chapter, but I don't think this is some like major revitalization. I mean, I think it's fun to see Steph have a compliment player, a guy who gets to the free throw line so easily, a guy who can kind of bulldoze his way through the paint. He plays just a very different style than Steph does, and that's really been effective for Golden State. But to me, it's not to the point where longer term, bigger picture. This is something that I think people need to be like quaking in their boots about. Like if you're elsewhere in the Western Conference, you're saying, "Hey, sure, nice move," but this is not the East where Jimmy Butler would live in the Eastern Conference Finals and make a couple finals trips. This is the West where even when he was younger playing for the Timberwolves, he didn't get out of the first round. And that's kind of what I expect for these Warriors.
Yeah, when the deal went down, my first thought was this makes Golden State a little bit better. And after watching 3 games, I still believe they are a little bit better. Jimmy's production point wise is up. He's getting to the free throw line like 11, 12 times per game. Like that's a dimension that Golden State didn't have with Jimmy Butler. And when they were able to post him up and make him kind of an offensive hub, that makes them a more diverse offensive team. And Jimmy can still defend. He's not what he used to be, where you can stick him on a primary scorer and expect him to lock the guy down for 35 minutes per game. But in spurts, he can still be a pretty high level defensive guy. It did worry me. Some of the things I saw in that Dallas game did concern me. When Butler and Draymond Green were on the floor, you could see the Mavericks strategy was to shrink the floor with the guys that were defending them. You saw
Yep.
whoever was on Butler, whoever was on Draymond, they were playing way off. Like he was a 7-footer from 25 years ago. They were just backed off in the paint, playing different, playing kind of a roaming defender out there. You can get away with that with one of those guys on the floor. It's tough to get away with it with 2 guys out there. And you combine that with the fact that Buddy Hield has like the 3-point yips, or at least he has the last 2 games. And we've seen his numbers since November when he was shooting the ball great from 3. December, January, those numbers have dipped. His last 2 games, he is 3 of 14 from 3-point range. That can't happen. You can't have 3 guys out there. I guess 4 if you want to include Quentin Post and Kevin Looney and Kevon Looney and whoever's playing that center spot. You can't have 3 or 4 guys alongside Steph Curry that can't shoot a 3. You can't do it. You're not going to beat a lot of teams. That Dallas loss, I mean, that one hurt. I know the Mavericks were energized. They needed a win. Kyrie went bananas again. But, that's a game that if you're Golden State, you've got to find a way to win if you're hunting playoff positioning. So I think, I do think they're better. I think Jimmy improves them overall. He makes them more multidimensional offensively, but he's not a 3-point threat. And in today's game, if you have 1 or 2 guys out there consistently that aren't 3-point threats, and right now 2 of the top 3 players in the Warriors rotation are non 3-point threats, smart teams are going to figure out how to defend you. And I think we saw the first of that with Dallas, where Dallas had some tape on the Warriors, saw a little bit of how they were going to play, and said, you know what? We're going to back way off on Jimmy. We're going to back way off on Draymond, and let's see if they can beat us in a different way. And they couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
I think you can be happy with the trade for the Warriors, but I'm with you. I don't think it moves the needle in the Western Conference.
No, I think that the two concerns they would have shooting, spacing, as you're describing, but also depth. And that was something they gave up with the Butler trade, right? Because they're sending out multiple pieces to make the salaries match. They have a number of guys in this rotation now with very limited NBA experience and basically very, very limited playoff experience. That includes Buddy Hield, who's a veteran, but he's not a guy who has much of a playoff track record. Certainly not a guy who has been trusted by his coaches in those big moments to hit shots like they're going to need him to hit shots. So to me, they became a very top heavy group. The top is good, but it's not great, and that's why I think they're going to be, they're going to be fighting in this play-in mix for sure. But then, to hope that they're going to upset one of these top teams in the Western Conference bracket, I just really don't see it. Like if they're a 7 or an 8, imagine them against an Oklahoma City or a Denver. To me, those teams are more complete, and they have better top end talent, and they have better shooting, right? And they've got more chemistry because they've been together all season long. I think those are going to be a quick series, and they're going to go against the Golden State Warriors.
And you can tell the Buddy Hield issues seem to be bothering Golden State a little bit. There was that sequence in the third quarter where Draymond seemed to get pissed at Buddy about kind of a bit of a lackadaisical cut that he made to the basket, and the ball was knocked away when Draymond tried to make a pass there. Like Buddy Hield's got to be efficient offensively. He doesn't bring anything defensively. So you've got to be an efficient 3-point shooter, good around the rim, taking pressure off of Steph from distance. Otherwise, what are you doing out there? He doesn't really add much value other than that. So yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see the second half of the season with Golden State, and and I think Jimmy's going to get a little bit better as he gets in better shape. He's going to have some great nights, but I think more and more teams are going to really shrink that floor against the Warriors and dare them to beat them, dare those guys to beat them from the perimeter.